Hello and welcome to 178th episode of Strive Defense Dialogue. Today, a very important issue we are discussing Indo-Canadian relations in the light of the recent splat between India and Canada on account of the death last year of the assassination of Harjit Singh Nijjar, who was a designated terrorist of India and who was Khalistan Tiger Force's head. And then Canadian government took the plea that he is a Canadian citizen and we have a expression of freedom of expression, so he could say anything and get away with that, and which government of India does not. And he says the credible allegation. Last year, 23rd September, he started saying this kind of a thing. Recently, also, he said that we have intelligence, but we have no substantial proof. India has been asking for substantial proof, which they have failed to give so far. Recently, they have also kind of Canada has approached Five Eye countries, that is US, UK, New Zealand, and Australia, and US said that it's a serious matter, and they have named India. So is the UK. New Zealand and Australia, without naming India, they said it's a serious matter. So it is an issue which is snowballing into a very major fracas. India has withdrawn its High Commissioner when they said he is one of the person of interest in the entire episode of killing. Now a new thing has just come that Royal Canadian Mounted Police is saying that Government of India is operating through Lawrence Bishnoi gang, which appears very, very ludicrous and something which is not believable. So to discuss all these issues and the related security and geopolitical implications of such a thing, we have a very renowned and our own academic head, General Harsh Kakkad, with us today. And he will be talking on this subject in detail. Over to General Kakkad for his views on the subject.
Thank you, sir. Initially, if you look at it, actually, the story of Nijjar's case was first raised after the G20 summit in India. Looking at the Canadian perspective, let's keep that I'll come to that in a second, or let me start with the Canadian perspective. Justin Trudeau, nothing that he made then, he's just made that remark now, that I didn't raise it in the G20 because I didn't want to embarrass India in the G20. That was nonsense. His visit to Delhi was a debacle. He knew that there is no bilateral between him and PM Modi, possibly the only leader of a major nation which was there in the G20 and didn't have a bilateral. The disgust in Trudeau was evident. He didn't attend the president's dinner. He took his son for a dinner into Connaught Place, and I think into a Chinese restaurant or something. To top it all, his aircraft packed up. He spent an extra day in Delhi. And he became actually the laughing stock of the world. When he went back, even before he went back, there were questions that were being asked. What did you do in the G20? What was Canada's contribution to the G20? You took your son along, you blew up this, and what did you ultimately achieve at the end? As also on the aircraft, to avoid any backlash, he immediately jumped on saying that India is behind the killing of Nijjar. That was the first time when the same thing was made public. Between then and now, there are claims that there was an exchange, and as Trudeau himself admitted, that what he's exchanged so far has only been intelligence, asking India to investigate and give evidence. That's stupidity.
The next cooperate for what?
Cooperate on what? On intelligence doesn't make sense. And the intelligence they claim is the one that was shared by the Five Eyes, which was basically monitoring India's diplomatic conversations which they are not supposed to. So they couldn't share that either. So there was nothing. Why did the issue come up now? He went to Laos for the visit for the ASEAN summit. There he claimed to have had a meeting with PM Modi. There was no statement by the Indian MEA. It was Trudeau who said, I had a meeting with PM Modi and I made these comments. The Indian MEA clarified that there was no meeting. There was nothing substantial discussed. The only thing that we want is this. It was indirectly calling Trudeau a liar. Surprisingly, while he was in Laos, did 20 Liberal MPs of his party sign a declaration that they want Trudeau to quit. This happened in Laos. Now, the moment he went back, there was the embarrassment of the Indian MEA spokesperson terming his statement as a bunch of lies, demands for his removal. And suddenly again, the case of Niger came. And this time, it was him, his foreign minister, and the RCMP. The only support that he got was from Jagmeet Singh. Now, taking Jagmeet Singh's case, the NDP, the New Democratic Party of Jagmeet Singh, supported Trudeau in the government. It's withdrawn support, but it continues to provide him support in terms of a no confidence motion. So it's out of the government, but supporting him from outside, which is what we have in our democracy also. Like the Congress today in J&K is supporting the National Conference from outside. So that is the status as of now. Now, a lot of interesting issues came up. Firstly, they say he approached all the Five Eyes countries. Okay, let's take them one by one. Or let's take a few issues. What did the US say? We would have preferred if India would have cooperated, but India has chosen a different path. Was there a reference that India should? No. Was there a commitment that we will request India to? No. Did the UK say that we will talk to India to cooperate? No. They just said it's a serious matter. After all, it is a matter where some national has been killed. Did Australia or New Zealand say that we will tell India to cooperate? No. So where exactly is the story? They didn't. None of them named India either. If you read any of the statements, they just said that it's a serious matter. What does it actually imply? Trudeau is crying for support, but there's no one who's backing him. There's no one who's saying that we will join you in dealing with India. Not a single country. They won't. The other aspect, look at it within Canada. Firstly, as far as the common Canadian is concerned, the Khalistan movement or even the killing of Niger is of nobody's concern. They're not bothered. The Khalistan movement has got possibly 1, 2 or 3% of the Sikhs who are involved. It's not the majority. If you look at the strength. And to give you an example, in 2006, when I was in Canada doing my course there with the Canadian forces and I met the Canadian CDS, he made a statement saying that there are 1 million Sikhs in Vancouver alone. If then there were 1 million, there would be far more. Look at the number in Brampton and all over Canada. They're in far large quantity. But how many get together for any of these protests? A few thousand.
2.1%. They say the population of 2.1%.
So basically, the Sikh population is 2 or 2.5%. But the fact is the numbers that get together are nothing much. That's one part. The Canadians are least concerned. And today, the CISIS director himself made a comment. Of course, the deputy spoke the other day and mentioned Pakistan is propagating the Khalistan movement. But today, the CISIS director himself made a comment where he said that India has a reason to be concerned because it concerns India's security. And anything to do with Khalistan brings to India the memories of the Kanishka aircraft disaster. So as far as India is concerned, it's a matter of its security and therefore it will remain concerned and there is no doubt about it.
Harsh,
The other
can I
factor, one
request
second.
can I just request you on this Kanishka thing, that can you elaborate this a little more, because they have exonerated the two culprits for that kind of a
So,
thing.
so they've exonerated the culprits. The Indian demands for extradition were rejected. There are still 26 extradition requests pending with Canada. All of them have been rejected. Finally, Talvinder Singh, one of the main prime accused in the case, was ultimately gunned down in Punjab in an encounter. So those who were involved are roaming free in Canada. Now, the Canadian government talks, or the RCMP spoke of the Bishnoi gang being involved. 2022, India put an extradition request giving the names and addresses of where the Bishnoi gang members are staying and demanding the extradition. Canada did not accept the extradition request. And today, it is the same RCMP of Canada which is now saying that the Bishnoi gang is involved in the killing of Nijar. Now, when you are unwilling to extradite them, you claim they are Canadian citizens and you will not extradite them. Today, how are you saying that they are involved in the killing of Nijar? They are your own people. So you should have extradited them in 2022.
Or you take
Now, when you look,
should take against action against those who are Canadian citizens and who are,
now that is
whether
one.
they,
Now,
which gang or
now
that
the
gang is
point
doesn't
is,
matter.
see, the point is all embassies across the world monitor their dissidents in whichever country they are. You're looking at it. It's a natural tendency and it's a natural request because the embassy is supposed to take care of the country's interests. So that is natural. Now, when a person of a country is killed, it is only if that can be exploited will the country take interest. Take the case of Canada. Karima Baluch was killed in and around Toronto. Everyone knows it's a Pakistan ISI job. But the RCMP said nothing about it. It closed the case. There have been other cases. The Chinese influence is very evident. They have got Chinese police stations still working in Canada. But by raising this issue at this time, when Trudeau went up before the interference committee, there was no mention of China. And it's evident that the Chinese people in the last election loaded the Chinese Canadian citizens in buses and got them to vote for Trudeau. But if you had to bring up China, it would have had a major impact. So the Chinese interference in Canada is now out. What dominates the news is Indian interference. The CC's deputy director mentioned Pakistan pushing the Khalistan brand. The fact is, when you speak to Indians who settled in Canada, and I have spoken to a few of them, they hear about more of the Khalistan movement in Indian social media groups than in the Canadian groups. There are Canadian reporters who specifically are monitoring the Khalistan protests. When in a city like Calgary, you have about 50, 60, 70 cars which have come from all over Canada, even 100 cars from all over Canada, which are parading in circles carrying the Khalistan flag. Does it make a sausage of a difference? To the Canadians in Calgary are bugged because their life was made difficult with this action. Now, for Trudeau, because he had the support of NDP, he had to go for Khalistan. Now, if you look at it today, he is trying to woo the Sikh population in Canada, which is a potential vote bank. And to do that, he has to support it. Literally within Canada, if you follow on Twitter, you follow a comment by any of the Canadian guys who are pro-Trudeau, and if you ask them to comment, you would find the number of local Canadians countering. When someone puts in an anti-Trudeau comment, you find the number of supporters backing him. And I'm not looking at Indians. I'm looking at Canadians on Twitter. So basically, this is a game that's being played for political survival. Now, take the difference between the two sides. Trudeau has been crying horse. Imagine a press conference of a prime minister, a foreign minister, and the head of the investigating agency. And India issues a half-page press note or a release by the MEA. There is nothing like drama. There is nothing like scenes being played out. He's approaching every country. Please back me. Please push India. He's trying to save his face. We are not bothered. For us, Canada is nothing. When Melanie Joly and subsequently Jagmeet Singh, in their press conferences, when Melanie Joly said that everything is on the cards, including sanctions, the press people laughed. And at the same time, the trade minister made a statement that we will ensure that trade with India and trade relations with India go untouched.
Continue.
When Jagmeet Singh made a statement on sanctions and against India, and including on the RSS, the press guys queered him. He just walked off. He didn't have an answer. Now, that is the sort of status in which this fight is. As far as India is concerned, it means nothing much. You've withdrawn. The only thing which is surprising is this level of diplomats are only withdrawn when there is an open conflict. Even with Pakistan at this level of tensions that we are on, you only don't have high commissioners. You haven't pulled out first secretaries at all levels. That happens at the stage of a conflict. So what he is actually pushing is things to that level. It is difficult for anyone to confirm whether Canada declared the Indian top diplomats as persona non grata, or did India decide to pull them out before Canada decided? Now, that's an issue which is debatable. You really don't know. Because both the announcements came near simultaneous. We got the Indian announcement well before Canada made the announcement that we asked them to withdraw. We also got the Indian announcement that we've told the Canadian people to go. Today, India has got 6 diplomats left in its mission in the High Commission in Ottawa, whereas the Canadians have got 12 left in India. That is the level. If things worsen, we will say equation, you also pull out 6 more. Now the issue comes up is there are a lot of Indians who are in Canada, a number of students there in Canada. So India's already made it clear. India's already made it clear that whatever can be managed by its current status, it will continue, and it's going to request other embassies to assist India. So that is not a major concern. That will be managed. The issue is, where does the relationship go from here? There is no way things are going to mend. There is no way anything is going to come towards a conciliation. In case the results of the investigation had been complete, till date, despite 4 people or 3 or 4 people being behind bars, no charge sheet has been filed. There have been very minuscule hearings, and each one of them gets prolonged. I think the next one is supposed to be on 25th or something of October. So nothing as such has moved on the case at all, which means that they still are doubtful of the sort of evidence that they have to even accuse the current guys that they've arrested and bring out the government of India. All they have with them are intelligence and recordings and a mention. But that mention is common across all diplomatic networks.
They call it credible
There is
allegation.
a difference. Actually, sir, if you're mentioning it, you need to look at 3 different words. Credible allegations, credible evidence, and intelligence. The lowest level is intelligence. If you have credible evidence, only then can you have credible allegations.
Yes.
If you don't have credible evidence, you cannot have credible allegations. Credible allegations cannot flow from intelligence. So this is where I would leave the status as. And now, in case anything you'd like to discuss.
Yeah. One question I have in mind is, say, suppose the fracas continues, and these Five Eye countries, which appears to be unlikely, but then in case if they decide to impose some kind of a sanction, who is going to be a bigger loser, Canada or
Sir,
India?
sir, firstly, you even Canada cannot impose sanctions. Forget about the Five Eyes. There is no way that even they can do. Now, if you want to look at the difference in approach, that's something which we should have also covered between India, between Canada and the US. The US gave you evidence. You acted on the evidence. And you went back to confirm as to what have you done on the evidence. They
And
shared
I think
further
it has
evidence.
been praised. It has been praised that India has
Now,
been good.
now that is a point is where you got credible evidence, not intelligence. Now the difference is none of the countries is going to poke its nose in a third party's business. You may be an ally, but no one's going to poke his nose in a third party business. And nobody wants to get involved in a third party dispute for any reason. Tomorrow, the moment Trudeau falls, for all you know, when the next government comes in, the relationships are back to normal. Do you think those countries that are looking at imposing sanctions, where will they be left? Nobody gets involved. And that is where it stays in any dispute, whether it's Indo-China, whether it's Indo-Pak, no other country is going to jump in unless it affects them directly. When it came to Ukraine, it affected them directly because the European nations were involved. They were afraid they would be next, which is why there was an involvement. As far as Israel is concerned, even France and parts of Europe are saying put a ban on export of arms because it doesn't affect them directly. So no country is going to poke its nose unless it's directly impacted, and none of them are.
No, and just converse of, they are saying that we had asked for extradition of Niger. We have, but they never acted on that. Even when
There are
in 2000,
26. There are, as of today, 26 extradition requests pending with Canada. They've
and
not
when
honored any of the 26. None.
Trudeau,
See,
when
sir,
he came,
see, we have to understand, sir, on an extradition request, the guy is arrested. He's taken to a local court. It is the judiciary of that country which determines whether the guy can be extradited or not, in spite of an extradition treaty existing or not existing. In the case of the Khalistanis from who are based there, a large number of them, including Niger, have landed there on false passports.
yes,
Niger's case was rejected thrice. Fourth time when Trudeau was in power, he was given citizenship. And he was given asylum and accepted, and then citizenship. Now, all these guys are on false passports, fake passports. The moment you land there, the first thing the government does is deport you back. But that's not what happened. As far as Sikhs are concerned, the Canadian government is willing to accept them because the community there is a vote bank, especially in the current scenario. And in this particular case, when you still have 26 extradition requests pending, including those of the Bishnoi gang, and they are the ones who are being accused of being involved.
no, they may be involved. So if they're Canadian citizens, they should act on them. Why should they ask us to act on Bishnoi
Yeah,
gang, or
basically,
just
that is
because
what
his
it
name
is.
sounds Indian? You say that, I mean, government of India is not. So saying, I mean, it was too harsh a thing to say the person of interest of the. I mean, my knowledge, when I tried to research also, it is never done that you allege of all people the high commissioner a person of interest in an investigation. You just can't do that kind of a thing. So
That has
this is
happened.
what,
It is a sign of desperation to switch stories, to switch the pressure, to remove India, to remove China from being one which is interference, and to bring in India in place of China as a nation which is interfering in Canadians' internal matters.
And when they say that it's an interference in their internal, I mean, say all those things. Uh, what about when Jagmeet Singh Brar said that RSS be banned or something? Who are they
Okay.
to say that kind of a
Okay.
thing?
Now, sir, now that you made the sentence, just give me exact. Yeah. There is an organization called Samidown, Samidoun. It's a Canadian organization. This is linked to the Palestinian cause. They are the ones who burnt the Canadian flag and also shouted death to Canada. Today, in fact, I think it happened yesterday, Canada and the US have declared this organization in Canada as a terrorist organization. And I just want to read out the statement of the Canadian minister. He said, the Canadian Public Safety Minister, Dominic Liebag, mentioned violent extremism, acts of terrorism, or terrorist financing have no place in Canadian society or abroad. Now, sir, he was talking of Samvidan. Now, the Khalistan movement burns the Indian flag. It puts a $50,000 bounty on the High Commissioner, sir, shouts death to India, demands breaking up of India into pieces, damages the Indian High Commission property. But it's not a terrorist organization. It's protected by free speech and free violence. Whereas Samvidan, which only protests and burns the Canadian flag and shouts death to Canada, is a terrorist organization. I thought we said that we have a rule of law in Canada. I thought we follow a one standard rule policy in Canada. But here, this is in front of you, and this is just within the last 48 hours. Now, if the US and Canada can take this action against Samvidan just because of these protests, and they were not violent, what do you do about violent protests? None of them have placed a $50,000 bounty on Trudeau's head. But you ban them. Wow. You can do that there, but you don't do it with Khalistanis because they're a vote bank.
So, with this kind of a approach and attitude, what should be the best course of action as far as Indian MEA and Government of India is concerned? The way we have
Sir,
taken, or some other course and some diplomatic parleys to reduce the support base of Canada or something?
no, we don't have to bother about it, sir. We have to just do what we've done. Stay out of, just keep them off. Now, you've not said that replacements can't come. Delay accepting the names of the replacements. Keep postponing it. What's the rush? Let the current level remain. We have nothing to lose. One. Number two, sir. As of now, the MEA has only issued statements. In a day or two, somewhere or the other, Jai Shankar will be on the dais. And in the questions he's going to be asked, he's going to give the Indian viewpoint, which is going to be on similar lines, that you have nothing to tell us. You don't say intelligence is evidence. There's a world of a difference.
There's a world of difference, yes.
Now, when the Indian missions were attacked, whether it was UK, whether it was US, whether it was Canada, we had CCTV proof. And whenever incidents of killing have taken place of people of other nations, you have given CCTV coverage as proof. What do you have as evidence? Here you got no evidence. All you're talking about are diplomatic communication between the embassy in Ottawa and the government of India in Delhi. That is intelligence which is illegal. That is not evidence.
You are not supposed to doing that kind of a thing. If you are
None.
doing,
Even
if
if
you are
you're doing it,
us to do it, then why are you doing it?
no, if you're doing it also, the point is that is only intelligence. That is telling you that there was a communication. But is it telling you that you were involved? It doesn't prove anything.
In
So
any
with
case,
that
there
sort of a
must be
status,
evidence. That cannot be counted
So
as an evidence.
that is the status. So that is where the whole problem comes.
Now, let's take some questions. One is
Right, sir?
this RP Singh has asked a question. Diplomatic resolution crucial to maintain strong and stable bilateral relations. India has a strong diplomatic relations with West, who is silent on issue of this support on Khalistan. Why? What? Why? And India's approach. What should be India's approach?
See, sir, globally, nobody is bothered about another nation's personal matters. If you look at it, who's concerned about what's happening in Balochistan or what's happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa of Pakistan? Nobody is bothered. Nobody is concerned about what's happening. It is the nation responsible which is pushing for it to happen. Now, quietly, a number of nations have acted. In UK and Australia, you find that there is nothing like this happening. You may have a referendum, but you don't have the level of protest that you're seeing in Canada. They've cracked down, they've put a block, and they're doing it quietly. One doesn't need it to be in the open domain. You find no threats to Indian diplomatic staff in any of these countries. You find no interference. You had an odd incident in London, but that's it. US is still accepting it because they haven't yet still cleared the San Francisco incident, despite India having given the names of the people with evidence from CCTV footage. The US says the FBI is still investigating. Because for the US and Canada, you can say is 50% US only. It's literally controlled by Washington. I've done the course and I've seen the way Washington treats Ottawa. Canadian officers hate going to Washington to the Department of Defense of the US Army because they say they send some idiot to brief us who doesn't even look at us or is concerned about us. They treat us as nothing. Now, the fact is, for them, you always look to keep some pressure even on your allies. There have been reports of the US monitoring personal calls of the German Chancellor and the others. So those things are known. So leaving that aside, so the world is not concerned about others. That's a fact.
Who is going to be a bigger loser in this kind of a game? India, or economically, I would say, India or Canada?
So the trade between the two is about $8.3 billion, out of which about India's imports are about 4 and India's exports are nearing 4. There's a slight bit of a trade imbalance as of recent times towards Canada.
Yes.
Our requirements, our imports are generally pulses and things that there are a number of Canadian companies that are established in India. From last count, from what I got from the net, it was about 600. Not very much of an investment, but there is immense amount of trade. It's not going to be a big loss to India. It's going to be possibly a loss to Canada because for them, what India exports are pharmaceuticals and a lot more. Now, our rates and our exports on these things are far cheaper than what they'd get from elsewhere. And as far as the Canadian, the public is concerned, India, in fact, the sort of Indian diaspora in Canada is massive. So for them, it's a major impact because if the diaspora goes against the government, the loss is solid. And which is what the MP Arya, Chandra Arya, has been highlighting, that you're going to lose massive Indian support if you go protecting the Khalistanis.
And my own sense is that people who are not pro-Khalistani, they are far more in larger number than what they are supporting. And you mentioned in your
very few. So the percentage is very, very low.
Why is it pandering to that lobby?
That's because the leaders of the NDP are in that category.
Okay.
And the NDP has got 20 seats. It's the kingmaker. Jagmeet Singh. In fact, the other guy, Hardeep Singh, who was the earlier defense minister, Jagmeet Singh, they're banned from entering India. So whatever, in fact, at one time, Hardeep, I think I'm forgetting his name, he was the defense minister of Canada, Sajjan. Hardeep Singh Sajjan or something was the defense minister of Canada.
Sajjan.
There was no way that he would ever get a visa to come to India, even as a defense minister. There was no way. That's the sort of way India has looked at them because of their support for the Khalistan movement. And that is the lot which is today the kingmakers in Canada, or they were. Let's see how it happens in the next election. Because of the way Trudeau's status has gone absolutely down, his whole political party may be nowhere. And along with him,
26%. I
the
think
NDP will also go down.
26 or 23% rating he has got.
And even the NDP will also go down because they both are linked. That's why the NDP is backed out of the agreement, though still supports him in the no confidence votes. So both are likely to go down.
Okay. Now, next question is this JBJP ask.
No, this is a statement.
Sikh population is 8 lakhs in 3 lakhs in Ontario. They consider 21. ठीक है.
2.1%.
Okay, that's okay.
And sir, frankly, I've met a large number of them when I was there, sir. Nobody, I mean, very few, and you only have them. You see, in Canada, the main money flows from gurdwaras and temples. Anyone can open a gurdwara as a business, which is why there is a massive fight for control of gurdwaras because the money flows from there. And that is where a large number of incidents of challenges and killings because of drugs, because of money flowing in a gurdwara, you have a large number of these incidents. In fact, there are videos on YouTube of Khalistan gangs in Canada basically involved in drug smuggling, massive drug smuggling. They are very major drug smuggling powers, and all of them are Khalistanis.
Why Canada is not say kind of a following the lead that it could be an act of internecine fight between those gangs which you are mentioning, which has resulted into the killing of
they've been trying to curtail them. So the gangs keep switching, and they are there. In fact, you must look at it in YouTube. You'll get a whole lot of gangs run by Khalistanis, run by these guys in Canada, and all of them are into drug smuggling and the rest, and also in illegal immigration.
JBJP has asked another question. As Canada has a very real damaging impact on Punjab in everyday life. Political interference from NRI, pro-Khalistan, gangsters from Canada doing killing, extortions, unhealthy palayan to Canada.
Frankly, sir, if you look at it, the impact of Khalistan in Punjab is zero. Anyone who's driven through Punjab would see literally nothing. There is an impact of these gangs in Canada because the money comes here. There are extortion cases. Drug smuggling to a large extent also comes in from Canada.
Yes.
So there is that sort of an impact. And then that is something which doesn't go very easy. And that impact is something, sir, we've got to accept. In fact, during the farmers' agitation, why did Trudeau jump in? Because a large part of it was being funded from Canada and the US.
Canada.
So they were funding it and they were expecting it to blow up into something way beyond where it ended up. But that is what it was. And the funding was coming in from
was done by Government of India. But the fact of the matter is, nobody talks of all those things which they did during farmers' agitation, and which was, I think, quite damaging to the national security at that point in time.
But it was very well handled. Very well handled.
It was indeed, because the damage control was quite substantial.
Correct.
Okay, now next question is, yeah.
ये हो गया सर. हो गया.
Now we go to Aklen Kumar Singh. AK Singh has asked, Trudeau is pandering to his vote bank. Is then the tirade against India by some Canadian Sikh is for Khalistan, or is it for control of Canadian Gurdwara plush? And you have just, I think, addressed this issue.
I just addressed this, sir.
So it's a... I don't think this no, there's another question probably. Yeah.
ये हो गया सर. Next ले लो.
मैं ले रहा हूँ. If India has check on anti-India approach by Pakistan, visa is restricted. Miss tourist visa. I don't know why India is going soft with Canada. Suggest measures, please.
So basically, we have a large. The Indian population in Canada is massive. We don't have you have barely anyone who's involved in the Khalistan movement. Those who are recognized are not being given visas. The others are innocent. Why are we going to punish them for no reason? In fact, the maximum population is hardworking and simple folks, and they're looking at maintaining contact with the homeland. Those who are Khalistanis never come back to India. They're only jumping there for the sake of drama. They're being paid to jump. You cannot punish people across the board for the acts of a few. I mean, the days of mass punishment in the academy are over. You can't do that here.
No, my suggestion is that why don't you start thinking of Khalistan in Canada itself? Just think of
It
that.
will ultimately end up.
Okay, next
The,
question is.
नहीं sir, आप पीछे जाओ. The question was, does Canada, next. Does Canada have a credible, sir, does Canada have, ye wala, sir. You see, the point is the opposition to the Liberal Party is existing. It is strong. Pierre, I can never pronounce his surname. He is the guy who's heading it.
Poilievre.
He is the one who is insisting that you come out with the details. He disagrees with what Trudeau is saying. And it's very evident he's the next PM. Everyone knows it, even in Canada, that he is the next PM. His party is soaring. And moment he comes in, things will change.
Yeah, I think, I mean, all those who come from there also, they are generally not very much for Trudeau. All those analysts. Jitendra Chance, what is the role of USA and India, Canada standoff, and how is it going?
The US is playing a very neutral role. It just made that statement. We would have liked India to be there, but India has chosen a different path. It said, "Bhai, tumhari marzi hai, jo karna hai karo." They have not said that we want India, we would desire India, we would request India. Nothing. It's chosen a different path. It's chosen a different path. That's the end of the story.
वो तो क्या बोलेगा, उसने तो जहां चाहता है, जिसको चाहता है ठोक देता है, चाहे वो कासिम हो, चाहे उसामा बिन लादेन हो, किसी को भी अलजारी हो, तो उसको तो क्या है. Now, Jack in and out of the box asked, what does China gain by financing Trudeau's election campaign?
So basically, I mean, as far as China is concerned, Trudeau is the man who's pro-China. They want him to remain, which is why they're pushing for him to be there. Despite the fact that for 3 years, the Chinese-Canadian relationship went haywire when the US requested Canada to arrest the vice president of Huawei, that famous telecommunication giant.
Yes.
Who was literally arrested in Canada for about 2 years. China responded by arresting a few Canadian citizens, including an ex-diplomat on a holiday there. It jailed them for spying. Ultimately, the issue got resolved. But Trudeau has always been pro-China. And that is something which is very evident, which is why he didn't want to highlight Chinese interference, including the existence of Chinese police stations in Canada.
Okay. There's a very interesting question is this. Ask Canada may deport lakhs of Punjabi students due to new tough rules. Punjabi lawyers in US, Canada are asking up to 2 lakh
So
Punjabi
basically, sir, the basic problem in Canada is the housing problem. You've gone in for people coming in and you haven't catered for the housing. It's becoming a very, very major problem. This is one of the reasons why Trudeau might finally be thrown out. Now, because of this, the only option they had was to change the rules for students. Earlier, you come in there as a student, you continue working, you take immigration, I mean, you become a Canadian citizen and you continue staying there. The other alternative was you apply for Canadian citizenship, your number comes, you get your points, your number comes, you go there and you become a Canadian citizen after some time. Now, because of these issues, you're compelled to come out with new rules. And the best part of it is you open doors for lawyers to come into play and they're going to mint money. They're going to take money from every student who wants to apply for Canadian citizenship. The students are protesting. The Canadian government is letting them protest. There is a lot of hangama going on in every university in Canada because of this. Even the guys who are under arrest for the murder of Nijjar are all those who went on student visas.
Yes.
Many of them went on student visas, did a 9-month course, and then remained within Canada, did nothing beyond that. Never attended college even in those 9 months. And that's the state of Canadian education. So you're just going in there on a student visa because you want to become a PR there, a permanent resident, as they call it.
No,
Now that you put this rule, sir.
My question is that what should government of India do within Punjab, where going to Canada is one such dream of every there lots of people.
Now, sir, now the dream is switching from Canada to Australia to New Zealand to UK. It's going all over. Canada has today come down drastically.
No, my point is that this kind of a fascination for going to these places, what government of India should do to see to it that this flight of youth does not take place to these.
You can't stop it, sir, basically because everyone feels that you can survive there, but it's not easy to survive. I've seen the way people are living there. I've seen the way they are working there. It is, I mean, I would say that we are blessed here. If you look there, the dishwashers in the college that we had were from Bangladesh, living 8 to 10 in a room, trying to survive, saving a little bit of money to be sent back. And your rent charges for a one-room set was something like $1,000. I mean, you may be earning a large amount, but your expenditure is equally large. Yes. 16% is your GST on everything that you buy. So it's a very costly affair to live. But then that fascination of being there is different.
No, my
why are you looking at Indians alone, sir? Why are you looking at Indians? You look from entire South America, there are hordes moving to the US. You're looking at a better life. You think you'll get a job. You think your next generation will do well. Why do you have the hordes of immigrants moving in from using treacherous routes to try and reach?
No,
that is
just,
it.
My one sense is that should we do some kind of a government or non-government sector certain things to generate this awareness that rather than going there, it is better to continue remaining in India and look for options.
Sir, try and understand that most of those who are going there are those who are not educated. You're going there on a very piddly visa and then you continue staying there. If you're well educated, I know a lot of people who are very well educated. I got two living in very close to where I am, who were working exceedingly well in Canada. They couldn't come back. I knew one who'd gone, done his law in India, went there, did management for 2 years. Then he realized it's not worth living and working there. He's come back and he's practicing law in India. He's ignored the management. If you're well educated, it's a different ballgame. But if you're not, you look at the entire lot of taxi drivers in Toronto. I mean, I lived only on taxis when I was there. You use the subway when you could, but otherwise you're on taxis. And every single taxi driver that you run into is a South Asian, Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, or Sri Lankan. I've had Indians who have a taxi and they're running it between two brothers, one on a 12-hour shift, the other on the other 12-hour shift. They got a small house in which both the families with the mother, father are staying. But that's how it goes anyway. So let's look ahead. So it's but then that lure is there to go.
Then there's a Sudhakar ji has asked a question, sir. As an Indian economy grows from 3.9 trillion to 10, 20, 30 trillion, such hybrid threats from transatlantic nations besides China is likely to increase. India's short, medium, and long-term strategy.
There is no doubt, sir, the threats are going to increase at every stage. You already are looking as to how do you minimize your threats. You have to keep looking ahead because that is exactly what the role of the MEA and the NSC is. Assess where the threats are going to emerge because there is a lot of jealousy with the way you rise. One part is your economy. The second part is not the economy rising. It is what is your per capita GDP.
GDP, yes.
Your per capita GDP is still very, very low. You may be a 20 trillion economy, but if your per capita GDP is still $4,000, $5,000 per individual, it is very,
About
very low as
4,000.
compared to other states.
It has just, I think, crossed $3,000
No, no, I'm
because
saying when even if your economy grows, so even if it goes to that level, it is still not there. But yes, threats will always remain, especially when you have strategic autonomy, which is why one of the reasons why nations will continue propagating movements against others and very silently support them. A reason why Panu is being given support. It's only for that ground, just to keep a fire simmering. That's it. He can only simmer the fire. He can do nothing from there.
and also I think the State Department and Pentagon, they are also not on the same page. The
Correct.
last question is, mm, this is the again JBJP asked when we say Justin. It's a very interesting observation. Justin Trudeau is supporting Khalistanis only for votes. We forget that 40 years ago, his father Pierre Trudeau was first one to shelter Khalistani who did terror. No vote percentage then.
No, even then, I mean, even then, his reason for supporting them was very evident that even then the Sikh community was fairly high. It's only increasing in population. As the
Ah,
population of Canada increases, the
1903,
percentage,
1903 onwards, the migration commenced.
and
And all
it's
those
been
other
there.
party and all were Canada based
And
only.
basically, at that time, Canada was far more powerful, economically connected, much better than what India was. It could just afford to turn down Indian requests. Today, the same Canada is crying to the world, support us against India. That time,
And that
India was
was
crying to the world, push Canada to support us. Today, the whole
till
thing is reversed.
1974. Our economic, this nuclear program was totally based on their
So they had a lot
technology.
of hold over us. They had a lot of control over us. We couldn't do very much. Today, it is Canada that is crying, ask India to listen to us. So situations change.
Uh, I think we had a very useful. Why leave this last question? We will just go for this question also. Ask, is it destroying Punjab overall, whether to Canada, Australia, UK, New Zealand? The issue is now a big political issue in Punjab. The recognition is there, and that is destroying Punjab views.
Nice. Punjab ke andar, nobody is bothered about the Khalistan movement. You talk to the local guy,
Yes,
he's not bothered.
yes.
He's
He's more
struggling with
bothered
his
about
daily bread.
MSP. He's more bothered about his own issues.
No,
Yes,
he's more concerned about the drug addiction in the state.
yes.
He's more concerned about the youth going haywire.
Haywire. Yes,
They are
agreed.
not concerned about Khalistan at all. Khalistan is only a dream of these idiots sitting there,
Agreed.
but they have the ability to fund violence to create problems, which is why you
Ah,
don't want to do. And it's an embarrassment for India when you have a protest which threatens the Indian diplomatic property
com-
in a country.
yes,
That becomes an embarrassment for the government.
yes. Okay, Harsh, I think we had a very good discussion, and a lot of issues were cleared. And one a few things which emerged very clearly, that time has come to call the bluff of these so-called Western world, when they try to say they are prepared to, with their double standard, they are prepared to meddle in our affairs, but they cry hoarse when such things happen, and without even evidence, they are trying to tell the world that it is that we who should be supporting them. What cooperation? I find this word very very intriguing, that they are saying cooperate. Cooperate means what? अपना वो वर्मा जी को उधर भेज दिया जाए कि भाई तुम उनके साथ जो करना हो कर लो. अरे ऐसे थोड़ी होता है. This is something which is absolutely incorrect, and I think the government of India has taken a very good and considered view, and this firm stance, I hope and pray that it continues, because it will be an abject lesson for all these countries not to meddle with India. And thank you. I thank not only, I mean, a big thank you to you. Thanks to all the audience who had been very kind and asked questions and raised issues which are very important. All it is left for me to say that please like, subscribe, and share. And all those who wish to contribute to our effort, that QR code is there. Please support our endeavor, where we can continue to bring more such issues to the fore and for your discussion. बहुत बहुत आप लोगों को धन्यवाद. बहुत बहुत ये आपका ज़रा नवाजी थी कि इतना आपने अच्छा इसमें किया. Thank you and good night.